Good morning, all. I'm glad to welcome you all to the 6th day National Level FDP, jointly organized by ELTAI and Sri Ramakrishna Engineering College, Coimbatore. We are about to begin our first session of the day. Participants are requested to post your questions in the chat box towards the end of the session. Before we start, I would like to introduce our resource person of this session, Dr. Ali Rahimi. Dr. Ali Rahimi teaches at School of Social Sciences and Languages, VIT University, India. He was previously an associate professor and intercultural studies at Bangkok University. He is the author of 14 books. He has had major roles in international educational associations as well as curriculum development policies and has served on numerous editorial boards. He has worked with Croatian Public Relations Associations, Bulgarian ELT, and teaches professional development and research at BAU in Istanbul, Turkey. He has also collaborated with the South Korean Educational Development Organization and KJEP. He is a guest editor of Elsevier, Social and Behavioral Sciences. Sir, we are happy to welcome you to your presentation on reading in a foreign language and intercultural communication perspective. Sir, I would like you to take over the session. Sir, please.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Lina, for your fantastic introduction. I would like first to express my gratitude and delight at this invitation. And I'm bending myself over backward to be able to supply you with some important information. As you see, can I see the first slide?
Yes.
And all right, as you see, it's reading in a foreign language and intercultural communication perspective. You see, you have my email address in here, and also my works and my books, all my more than 133 scientific articles available. My articles are on ResearchGate. Also, they are on ORCID page, on academia, but mostly all the books and materials, my articles can be retrieved on my ResearchGate page, which is you can see in here. So please join ResearchGate if you are not already there, and please follow me. I will follow you back, and we can start collaboration. You can have a glance at my papers, my books, and then we can start collaboration. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate this opportunity to talk with distinguished professors and students, and I again thank the organizers. Briefly, I'd like to tell you, can you hear me? Is it all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So basically, this talk centers on the idea of culture, intercultural communication, language proficiency, ELTAI, and specifically the interplay between culture, intercultural communication sensitivity, intercultural communication awareness, identity, teachers' cognition, with respect to the teaching and learning of reading as a foreign language or English as a lingua franca. So in this talk, I focus on culture, language, reading skill and language proficiency, and identity. I'm not going to repeat the previous information on reading, because I take it for granted that all the professors and students are well aware of different kinds of reading, the definitions of reading, extensive reading, intensive reading, interactive reading, bottom-up approach, top-down approach to reading, silent reading, all these, models of reading. I take it for granted that you have complete information about all these disciplines. Hence, I'm not going to repeat them, and I want to focus at the end specifically what I'm trying to do as a researcher. I don't identify myself as with a practitioner. Hence, I want to focus on very important research questions at the end of my talk. They are very significant, and they can be utilized for writing PhD or MA dissertation, thesis, also papers, paper publication in Scopus index journals, which are receiving so much attention in India. Hence, my main area of interest now in this particular talk is ironically the end of the talk that centers on research topics, because I'm obsessed with publication. I'm a researcher, basically more than a teacher or practitioner. So, and I have supervised enormous number of dissertations in different countries. So,
Excuse me, sir. Sorry to.
yes.
Sir, we have some disturbance in the audio from your side. Yeah,
So what
maybe
can we
some
do?
papers or.
There is no paper, nothing around here.
Okay. Maybe while you.
So what can I do?
Yeah, now it is clear, sir.
Is it all right?
Yeah, now it is clear.
Maybe I should not move at all, like a robot.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So I have to fast forward. Because I'm afraid some technical problem might crop up. So what defines culture? The culture, as you see, manners, language, values, and morals, traditional stories, family structure, age-appropriate behavior, gender-appropriate behavior, food, music, clothing, money, history, time, holidays, and religion. This is a very nice slide presenting the essential building blocks of culture. They are pretty much related to the idea of language learning. Any language learning whatsoever cannot be separate from all these elements. I go next. Culture. There is a definition of culture in here. The distinct practices, artifacts, institutions, customs, and values of a particular social group. Manners, beliefs, ways of dressing, behaviors, learned, not inherent, but logical, dynamic changes over time. There are some, I don't like to work on this part. I just go to high context and low context cultures. In terms of intercultural communication, a very important dichotomous categorization is the dichotomy of high context versus low context. High context cultures, societies or groups where people have close connections over a long period of time. Aspects of cultural behavior are not made explicit because members are expected to know what to do. Your family is probably an example of a high context environment. Low context refers to societies where people tend to have many connections, but of shorter duration or for specific reasons. Cultural behavior and beliefs may need to be spelled out so that those coming into the cultural environment know how to behave. So high context cultures are like the Middle East countries or probably India. The context is, sometimes context is replete with ambiguities. Hence, for communication, you need context, you need the participants, you need the aim, the goal, the setting to be able to decipher what the communication message might be. Low context cultures are basically more like America or Western countries are more low context. There is more clarity, there is more generally speaking, these are, I'm trying to avoid the stereotypical attitudes and statements, but basically the discourse in low context cultures is supposed to be less ambiguous. It's, it's supposed to be more clear, straightforward, and direct. High context cultures. Again, every nation contains both high and low context. This statement is given to avoid the stereotypical statements. However, a culture can be said to be generally high or low context. For example, Japan, an ancient nation not terribly welcoming of outsiders, is generally high context. Canada, a young nation with a current social value of multiculturalism, is generally a low context culture. High context again. The group is valued over the individual. So it's mostly high context. Again, there is another intimately related concept of or categorization of collectivist cultures versus individualistic cultures. High context are mostly collectivist cultures, and low context are individualistic cultures. So high context cultures like Japan, like most probably India and the Middle Eastern countries, the group is valued over the individual. So the goals and the objectives and the values and norms and ideological perspectives of the group and the society is more important than those of the individual. And sometimes the individuals are basically, unfortunately, sacrificed, and their rights are trampled upon because the society, the social, and the group, and probably the government receives more attention and credence than the individuals. The situation determines meaning. So we see that in high context cultures, again, situation is important. People believe in fate. People believe in God. People are religious, basically. People believe in destiny. People believe in predetermination. And their lives and the external factors are actually very significant. That is actually, again, intimately, inextricably tied up with the concept of locus of control in psychology. So the locus of control for high context cultures is external rather than internal. In other words, the cause of all failure and flops are external. So when anybody fails in high context culture, they say that the weather was not good, it was a bad day, I did something wrong, gods were angry at me, all external factors. It was my fate, it was my destiny, it was my luck, I'm unlucky person. So, but in low context cultures, there is no luck, there is nobody being unlucky or lucky. Sometimes people are lucky in the morning, unlucky in the afternoon. So basically, in high context cultures, we see that external factors like fate and determinism and God and religion and external factors are paramount. Relationships are highly valued, emphasis on long-term relationship. So yeah, the relationships in high context cultures in India, in Middle East, relations are highly valued. They are long-term relations, but mostly in low context cultures like in the US or in Europe, relations could be very transient, very makeshift, shaky, and pragmatic. In other words, the relations are not necessarily in low context cultures. In low context cultures like Western countries. Again, I want to emphasize, I want to avoid the stereotypical statements. I don't have a blanket approach. I'm just elucidating the potential manifestations of these cultures, and individuals might be entirely different. So I'm talking about the patterns. I'm not taking a blanket absolute approach to these manifestations of behavior. However, relations are highly valued, emphasis on long-term relationships. So in high context cultures, collectivist cultures like India, like Japan, like Middle East countries, relations are supposed to be valued and long-term and robust and probably permanent. Marriage means, permanent relationship. But in the West, divorce could be easily pop up. I don't know, probably the same pattern is noticed in other countries also. However, these are the tendencies. Non-verbal cues are significant. Non-verbal cues are significant part of communication. Very important. Body language in high context cultures are very important. The reason is that the discourse or the language itself is always ambiguous. There is ambiguity is the bugbear of the communication because people are not necessarily straightforward and clear. There is little transparency in the communication, and most of the time, no does not mean no. No absolutely means yes. You have to look at the face, you have to see the body language, you have to see the context, so that you could see whether this no means yes or not. But in the low context cultures, like in Western countries, yes necessarily means yes. You don't need body language. So when they say, for instance, yeah, right, or when they say yes, I love you, it's really they mean what they say. But probably when somebody say, oh, I adore you, in a low context culture, they might say, you are my enemy number one. I detest you. I hate you. I don't like you. In fact, I hate you. So body language is very important in low context cultures. Avoid saying no, less emphasis on written communication. So they avoid saying no. Saying no in in high context cultures, like in India or in other Middle Eastern countries. Saying no is difficult because of shyness, because of respect, because of values. Sometimes it's pretty difficult for us to reject an invitation. So we sometimes bend ourselves over backward to just say, to use some innuendo, some beat around the bush, and we are not direct. So it's difficult to say no. Time is taken for ceremony. But sometimes time is taken for granted in high context cultures. I think it's absolutely true. I have the experience of working in different countries, like high context and low context countries, and I see that in high context countries, I have taught in Turkey, in Arabian countries, Istanbul University, and I see that sometimes in high context cultures, time is not valued, time is not gold, time is taken for granted. There is no punctuality, there is no principle, there is no exactness. Again, I don't want to have this typical attitude, but basically time, meetings can be cancelled, meeting can be postponed. Yes? Problem?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes?
Sir, we get some rustling sound again, sir. Kindly.
What's your suggestion? What's your suggestion?
Sir, now it is clear, sir.
So whenever you hear the rustling sound, let me know. Is it a good idea or is it practical? How long was did you see the rustling sound? Long time?
The past 5 minutes, sir.
Oh, what can I do, sir? What can I do, lady? I don't know if it is on my side or basically my classes, I have no problem.
Okay, sir.
So what can
okay, sir. You proceed, sir. You proceed. Now it is okay.
The previous slide or no?
Yeah. You could move. You could move on.
Move.
Yeah. I mean, you could proceed with your slides, sir.
Okay. So the high context, the group is valued over the individual. That's irritating. I can't. I lost my self-confidence. I don't know what's going on. The situation determines mating. Relationships are highly valued. Emphasis on long-term relationships. Non-verbal cues are a significant part of communication. Avoid saying no. Less emphasis on written communication, and time is taken for ceremony. In low context cultures, like European countries and America, individual achievement is valued because they are basically individualistic approaches to culture, not collectivist. Rules oriented and rules tend to be written down. Rule-based societies. Literal meaning of utterances is assumed, reliance on logic. So which means that there is very, very little ambiguity involved. So the statements, we don't need body language to decipher the meaning, to figure out the intended meaning or pragmatic meaning of utterances, basically. So body language is not that important in low context cultures, like in Western countries. It's because the statements are absolutely straightforward and direct. Interpersonal relations tend to be shorter directions. So relationships are basically short-term and practical and pragmatic and even transient. Non-verbal cues are only subtext and are rarely communicated. So due to the fact that the discourse is basically very, very clear and straightforward, you don't need a lot of contextual clues to be able to figure out the intended or pragmatic meaning. They will say no directly. Saying no in low context cultures and Western societies is easily any invitation from anybody whomsoever is easily and directly rejected. Ceremony is less valued and seen as a frill. So the concept of time again, time is gold, punctuality, principle, discipline are paramount. So meetings and deadlines are not broken, promises are not broken, meetings are very well organized and principled. Is my voice proper? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is clear. It is clear now.
Oh, good, thank you. Functions as language functions as a mediated tool used in communicative activities. Simultaneously sociocultural relationships. Language and culture. Language and culture imply each other. Culture informs the selection of language use. Language is a tool that creates and recreates culture. Culture emerges from the social interactions in which social meanings are linguistically constructed. Language, culture, and identity. Identity is the fulcrum of a lot of cultural studies, social studies. I think that's a very, very significant element. It is, in fact, indispensable and essential building block of all social, political, linguistic studies. So I strongly recommend studies on identity, different kinds of identity construction, identity formation, identity equilibrium, identity disequilibrium, identity congruence, identity incongruence, identity conflict, identity friction, identity bizarre identities like, I can't tell them bizarre, but identities, gender and identity, age and identity, identity and professional development, identity and language teaching, all these important issues for discovery. Sociocultural perspective, that's the model, that's the framework. Learning occurs through interaction, and then it is integrated into the mental structure. I have to fast forward because I'm actually a bit worried that again the same problem pops up. Sociocultural perspective, teachers need to play the role of resourceful interactant who help to facilitate learning and scaffold. Scaffolding is an important process in language learning and teaching. Scaffolding is supporting individuals, giving them zone of proximal development, as Vygotsky talks about. Creation of mediation, agency, all relevant ideas are related to input, proper input, I+1 input, and ideas and supporting learners. And do not leave them in their lurch. Give them continuous, consistent, and incessant information. Expansion of knowledge and improvement of necessary skills. Implication. Language teachers need to be efficient in providing meaningful linguistic and cultural interactions that will promote students' cognitive development. For teachers to be efficient, cultivation of personal identity, teachers must, in terms of identity, who am I? Professional identity, who am I as a language teacher? Important questions. Personal identity, who am I? A linguistically competent person. Focuses on the use of language to communicate, not on the issue of native, non-native, or standard dialects. A culturally competent person, what is the definition? Internalizes the concept of multiculturalism to become genuine culturally insensitive and so can manage diversity among students with sincere understanding and compassion. I hope there's no problem. Yes? No problem? Can I go ahead?
Yes, sir. You can go ahead.
Thank you. What is professional identity? The teacher as a subject matter expert, the teacher as a pedagogical expert, and the teacher as a didactical expert. So important perspectives on professional identity of the teacher. Pedagogical expert, teaching, subject matter expert, a teacher who is efficient and proficient and can supply the necessary information to the students. The teacher as pedagogical expert is by definition a teacher who is well aware and well versed in different educational perspectives, theoretical perspectives, theoretical frameworks, teaching and learning strategies, techniques and strategies. Teacher as a didactical expert, so as far as didactics go on. Here we talk about teacher as a role model, as a hero, as a leader, as somebody who strictly follows all the nooks and crannies and all the regulations of ethics and ethical behavior and morality and moral codes in the act of teaching and interaction with the students. As a subject matter expert, teacher as a subject matter expert is well informed of linguistic components of evolution of the language, well trained in intercultural sensitivity. If you like, I have published a couple of papers on intercultural sensitivity that are available on my ResearchGate. Please have a glance at them. Probably, and these studies have been carried out in Turkey, in Thailand, in some other countries, so they can be replicated in India. So intercultural sensitivity papers, well equipped with digital knowledge. So digital knowledge, digital literacy nowadays for MOOC courses, online, and blended education, flipped education are actually part and parcel of all the teaching techniques and strategies. A pedagogical expert geared towards classroom practice that validates and empowers students' native languages and cultures. Teacher accepts interference of students' mother tongue and cultures in their communication during the classroom activities. So what we have as turn taking, also the idea of switching to different languages, include computer-assisted language learning, computer-mediated communication, very important, CMD and CMC, computer-mediated communication and computer-mediated discourse nowadays with the rise of this horrible pandemic. Again, you see the rejuvenation and revitalization of the concepts of CMC and CMD to rejuvenate and to re-energize and to refabricate and to redefine the idea of language teaching. A didactical expert, important, incorporate the present development of teaching conception into language learning and teaching. Monocognitive perspectives, these are also open to analysis. Monocognitive perspective, metacognitive perspective, and pantacognitive, that is multi-cognitive perspectives. Yeah, that's the most important part. How much time have I got, Lena? That's the important part, the very important part.
Yes, sir. Till 10, it is 12:14, sir. Till 12, half an hour you have, sir.
I have half an hour now.
Half an hour, 30 more minutes.
Okay, so the questions are asked after the meeting?
Yes, sir.
After talk? After the talk?
After your presentation, yes.
Fair enough. Questions for further research. As I said at the beginning of my talk, my focus is, my aim is to supply you with some very important questions for the dissertation or for article publication. Question number 1. What is the interplay between personal identity and cultural identity? Question number 1, the concept of identity. As I already reiterated the significance of identity. So what is the connection between personal identity and cultural identity? So basically your personal identity as an individual, your personality, your character, your features, your likes and dislikes are always in constant relationship with your cultural identity, influenced by your religion, uh, your time, your background, your race, your gender, your age. All of them are interrelated. I hope I can get back to the slide on the different sections of culture, if I might be able to. Yeah, that's it. As you say, all of these are the building blocks of culture. The manner, the language, value and morals, traditional stories, family structure, age-appropriate behavior, food, music, clothing, money, and history, gender-appropriate behavior. So manners is your basic. I take it for granted that I don't need to provide. You needn't definitions for these, but manners could be your attitudes, your beliefs, your ideas, your ideologies, your table manners. The language in India, you can see a lot of diversity. In India, so many languages are spoken, as you know, like Tamil, like Telugu, like Kannada, like Hindi, so many languages. So you see a lot of variation in social and regional and also individual variations. Values, religious values, political values, family structure, different in different countries. I think the family structure in India, as far as I know, is very robust and very strong. There is a lot of intimacy and friendship and compassion going on, and people are and family members are very tightly close. That because that's a high context culture, and the family structures are very, very close. Contrary to the low context cultures or individualistic cultures, that the family structures are basically generally not so solid and solidified and strong and intimate. Age-appropriate behavior, again, different in different cultures. In high context cultures, like in India, and in Middle East countries, age is important. People are revered and respected. The elderly are respected a lot. So we show a lot of politeness, a lot of reverence and attention to the elderly. Gender behavior, this is the slippery concept. Nowadays you have got women's equality, women's rights, also gender fluidity, the fluidity of the gender. So you see the gays and lesbians and undecided and so many. Nowadays, I say nowadays there is what is that? LTGB, whatever. Concept, and there is plus in terms of sexual orientation. So we are coming up with some plus, and almost anything goes. So, and sometimes I say, what is the limit of these sexual orientations? So sometimes we come up with really weird and bizarre orientations. Are they necessarily allowed or respected or not? That's a big question. And in terms of feminist approach and women's rights, the food, for instance, the cuisine in India, I love Indian cuisine. I think probably is the best. The variety of the food in India is fantastic. Like idli, sambar, dosa, masala dosa, biryani, chicken biryani, so many, vada, especially vada, different kinds of vada. So the variety in food is impressive in India culturally. So one of the main attractions of coming to India for most of the people is the fantastic, fabulous cuisine. Time again, I talked about the time, the concept of time in high and low concept. Holidays, not so much holidays in India, especially for the, and I was really surprised because in every university you are entitled to 2-month paid holiday. And I have been here, no holiday, even not 1 day holiday, that's a bit difficult, makes things difficult. Religion, again, as the biggest, greatest democracy in the world, India is open to and flexible to different religious practices, and that's great. So this part I thought I had to talk about again. I get back to the questions, and these questions are, I believe, and if you like to collaborate with me on working on these questions, we can collaborate together. Please drop me a line, send me an email. We can work on these questions and publish them in a reputable journal. The second question, is my voice proper? Is it all right?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Clear.
Thank you. How can meaningful intercultural communication enhance EFL teachers' effective teaching methods? Sorry, mindful. So this question focuses on the relationship between mindful intercultural communication and EFL teachers' effective teaching methods generally. How can it foster their teaching strategies for reading in a foreign language? So this question focuses on the role of familiarity with intercultural communication in enhancing teachers, EFL teachers' teaching methods generally, and their reading in a foreign language teaching strategies in particular. Question number 3, how can identity and negotiation perspective foster teachers' cultural identity formulation? So the concept of cultural identity formulation and its relationship with identity negotiation. So consciously, unconsciously, advertently or inadvertently, we as teachers, we are negotiating, or we are interacting our identities and likes and dislikes and beliefs and values with those imposed on us, or rather say those provided to us by the organizations. So there is sometimes incongruence or disharmony between one's ideas and identity perspectives and those proposed by the university and organization. So the main point in here is cultural identity formations and through identity negotiation, and how this negotiation actually is a fluid flow of constant fluctuation and negotiation and stuff. How can teachers cope with identity disequilibrium through cognitive and affective strategies? So as you know, in any learning and teaching process, there are three domains: affective domain, cognitive domain, and behavioral domains. As you know, affective domains include emotional aspects of learning, like empathy, like self-confidence, resilience. Resilience is absolutely essential and important. I would like to write about resilience, especially in different times, like pandemic time. What is resilience? How resilience can help us survive first, and how as teachers and students, how we can employ high degree of resilience in achieving our academic goals. So I believe studies can be done on resilience and resiliency, very, very significant issue. How can resilience affect our academic achievement? How can resilience in constant relationship with motivation? How is resilience related to motivation? How is motivation and demotivation are related? How resilience is related to other mental and emotional parameters, personality factors, like motivation, like self-esteem, like risk-taking, like self-efficacy, empathy. All of these are in constant and interaction. The next question. So what is identity disequilibrium? The identity equilibrium is a state of stability, is a state of harmony, is a state of happiness and satisfaction. Identity because where your workplace, your organization, the organizational practices and theories and regulations are nice and you like them and you follow them. So you have an identity equilibrium or balance. Equilibrium is balance. Disequilibrium is imbalance. Hence, identity disequilibrium is in fact the aftermath of a conflict between your wants and desires and ideas, and those imposed sometimes brutally by the organizations. Hence, you go through, or any teacher or student goes through negative, deliberative, deleterious, negative feelings of frustration, of even disappointment, frustration, angst, gloom, and melancholy. So it is incumbent on the organizations to provide the necessary workplace atmospheres, mental and emotional support to avoid or to ward off their employees or teachers or students identity disequilibrium. And identity disequilibrium might need you to, and you might turn out to be a flop or a failure because of your conflict with the values and norms of the organization, and not due to your lack of competency or mental or professional abilities. In other words, those who have high degree of identity disequilibrium might be very intelligent, effective, and influential, competent individuals, and they turn out to fail because of organizational, dictatorial, brutal, tough regulations. On the other hand, some people, some teachers or students who can actually have a high degree of submission, and they are like slaves, and they follow whatever is imposed on them, and they are not necessarily Einstein or very highly intelligent. However, they are successful because of not scientific measures, only because of flattery, because of they toe the line, they jumped on the bandwagon of success, and that is not a healthy environment. So this is open to studies. Question number, the next one. How can collectivist and individualistic cultures shape teachers' cultural identity? How can it affect their teaching and reading of reading in a foreign language? Again, as I said before, the high context cultures like India and the Middle Eastern countries, they are the society is important. There is high degree of ambiguity. There is little principle. Sometimes there is, for example, in high context cultures, you can be employed not because of your competency, but due to favoritism, nepotism in high context cultures. You have a company, you employ your niece, your nephew, and your your cousins, and the others are deleted. That is what happens in high context cultures. Again, I want to emphasize this is individuals might differ. Yeah, I'm talking about a tendency and a pattern. In what ways teachers' self-perception may lead to identity friction and conflicts? Important. Identity friction and identity conflicts. Based on your background, based on your linguistic, ethnic, racial background, religious background, you might go through a process of brutal disempowerment, brutal marginalization and exclusion, not because of anything scientific, only due to your background, racial, religious background. I don't know if you have. India is famous for creation of diversity and human rights, but in some other countries it might happen that this identity friction, identity conflict, due to the disparity of religious and racial background, might lead to the individual's devastation. So this is open to question, and how does it affect our resiliency, our motivation, if we experience disempowerment and discrimination and racism, to what extent they affect our performance, our motivation, our resiliency, our satisfaction, our job performance, our achievements. Important question. The next question is, what parameters are involved in teacher cultural identity dissonance? How does it influence their self-efficacy and students' achievement? This can be a very important, beautiful research. And the components and the variables are identity dissonance, cultural identity dissonance or identity dissonance, teacher self-efficacy, and students' achievement. As you know, self-efficacy of the teacher is a very significant issue, and you know that human feelings are contagious. And there is a ripple effect in psychology indicating that your feeling, if the teacher has got very low self-efficacy, this negative, cynical feeling is quickly transmitted to the students, and students take the teacher for granted and themselves go through this negativism and cynicism, and they lose their self-confidence in terms of, with respect to the identity dissonance of the teachers and students. The next question is, to what extent does creativity, innovation ward of cultural identity disequilibrium? So suppose that, imagine that you are in a situation in which your cultural identity is at odds with the identity, norms and values and beliefs of the organization. How can you protect yourself against this toxic environment, and basically through the application of your own innovation and creativity to basically ward off this kind of identity disequilibrium and get back through resilience and innovation and creativity, get back to the previous state of normalcy and effectiveness and efficacy? How can group inclusion and intergroup boundary regulation influence teachers' cultural identity formation? So group inclusion and in-group, intergroup boundaries, important. So the concept of agency is very important. As you know, if you read Michel Foucault or Giraud and the others, related in critical pedagogy is very significant, important, and discipline. I like that, and I have written papers on that. Critical pedagogy states the fact that, you know, the societies are not necessarily beautiful, and the sun is not always beautifully shining on us. Life is not like flowery and sweet and beautiful and a bed of roses. There is the other side of the coin, that you see that life sometimes is replete with injustice, unfairness, brutality, and whatnot. Hence, in here, the critical pedagogy talks about the goal of critical pedagogy is empowerment. The key term in critical pedagogy is empowerment. Empowerment of the marginalized, disenfranchised, parts of the society, including nowadays with the, we see that Black Lives Matter, that is probably too much, I don't know. I've got a positive view about it, but when it is magnified and when it is too dominant and stuff, it turns out to be counterproductive rather than productive. However, any like women, like Black people, like people at the lower rung of the social ladder, all of these, they need agency, they need power. So the role of critical pedagogy is basically empowering the disempowered. The next question is, to what extent do students' higher order cognitive competencies improve their reading ability? What is the role of teacher cognition? Two absolutely significant factors are mentioned in here. Higher order cognitive competencies. What are higher order cognitive competencies? It encompasses, you have lower order cognitive competencies, which are not absolutely creative, like counting, like memorization. They are low order cognitive competencies. And here we are, and most of the time at most universities, the higher order cognitive competencies like problem solving, inferencing, logical reasoning, logical thinking, creativity, critical thinking, innovation, they are not fostered at universities. And that's a big problem. And we churn out basically enormous number of graduates with beautiful, fantastic decorations and degrees. However, in terms of with respect to the higher order cognitive competencies, they are basically hopeless and useless. I'm not generalizing again. Don't pick on me, please. These are potential occurrences and in different countries. So the other one is, so studies can be carried out on cognitive, how to foster students' higher order cognitive competencies through reading, for instance, through listening, through proper critical reading, through critical thinking. So that's paramount. That's key, in fact. And what is the role of teacher cognition? Again, I want to emphasize the significance of teacher cognition. Teacher cognition, absolutely essential. Nowadays, publishable in most of the journals. Teacher cognition in different aspects. Their likes, dislikes, values, norms, ideologies, agencies, critical thinking perspectives, their ideologies, their worldviews, all come up under the rubric of teacher cognition. So how can teacher cognition be related to students' reading performance, students' language proficiency, students' creativity, students' motivation, demotivation, resilience? So teacher cognition as probably most colossally significant parameter in teaching can influence literally all aspects of students' performance, students' achievement.
Sir?
Is there?
Yes, sir.
Problem again?
No, sir. Shall we move on to the Q&A session, sir?
Let me, can you give me 5 minutes?
Okay, sir, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Only 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. The next is, to what extent, I read the questions, to what extent may intergroup and interpersonal perceptions shape students' intercultural sensitivity? Intercultural sensitivity, please read my papers, couple of papers on intercultural sensitivity. What is the role of gender? Gender is an important issue. Women's rights, feminism, feminist study, read Germaine Greer. Germaine Greer is a big name. I really appreciate what she has written. What is the role of gender in students' intercultural communication abilities? How does it affect their reading comprehension scale? It's the role of gender in reading comprehension. What situational identity parameters can affect success or failure of students' intercultural communication development? And what is the role of technology? That is also important, technology-enhanced intercultural project. Important. What is technology-enhanced intercultural projects and how does it affect students' achievement? Now, what congruence and incongruence identity orientations are involved in teachers and students reading in a foreign language? Very significant, important topic for analysis. Identity congruence and identity incongruence. And what are the cultural approaches to reading, discourse, and pragmatics in teaching English as a foreign language, as a lingua franca? The last question, beautiful, fantastic for studies, for dissertations, and for research studies. I'm trying to get back home. The home is not working. The home is not working on the slides, so I have to get them one by one. Lina.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The home button is not working.
Okay.
Is it true?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. It won't, sir. We need to
One
go
by
side
one.
by side. Yes, sir.
Home is not working.
Okay.
Okay, I'm open to the questions. Thank you so much for your patience. Did you hear what percentage of my talk was understandable? Like you said, 5 minutes was problem.
No, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just a rustling sound, but it is still your voice was clear, but it was a disturbance. That's why.
The whole talk.
No, sir. No, sir. Not the whole talk.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
So you can hear me. So you said only 5 minutes was problematic.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good.
Yeah. Yes, sir. The first question to you is from.
Please don't ask very difficult questions.
Yes, sir.
I'm your guest. Show mercy to me.
From Dr. Zedan Patil, do you notice culture specificity in turn-taking behavior? Can you please illustrate it?
Yeah, that's a very nice question. Very excellent question indeed. Yes, turn-taking. The maxims of Grice. The maxims of Grice, and also the turn-taking. Always, I make a mental map about the question. Turn-taking belongs to the felicity conditions. Felicity conditions of an appropriate discourse. So felicity condition by felicitous discourse, we mean a proper discourse that is polite, that is relevant, that is proper in terms of quality, quantity, manner, and relevance. So yes, my answer to the question is absolutely yes. I believe that turn-taking is, in terms of high context cultures, this turn-taking might not be strictly followed, because in turn-taking you have to observe the rules, like stand in a queue, and also a question must be responded by an answer, and then you have pauses, and then you have hedges, and then you have discourse markers which indicate the end of your statement. Discourse markers that actually signify the start of your statement. I personally believe the turn-taking is absolutely categorically influenced by the category of high context collectivist culture and individualistic culture. And basically my impression is that the Grecian maxims of felicitous, this polite discourse is not applicable to all countries, and turn-taking turns out to be very local, even individualistic, and influenced by immediate culture and immediate setting, immediate environment. And the low context cultures might follow the linguistic pragmatic rules more strictly than those in the high context cultures.
Thank you, sir. The next question to you is by Ms. Amita. Is high context culture is a positive approach or conforming to traditions?
Say it again, please.
Is high context culture is a positive approach or conforming to traditions?
This is a difficult question because positivism. What do you mean by positive? Positive, you mean optimistic or not? Do you mean optimistic? Can I ask if positive means optimistic or not? What does positive mean here?
Yeah, optimistic.
Not necessarily. No, it's not relevant. It has nothing to do with optimism or negativism or positivism and pessimism. Basically, following the tradition is more following the regulations and traditions specified by the governments, basically. So that sometimes, like an example in collectivist cultures is individuals' rights, freedom, also privacy, space. All these four factors are easily, beautifully violated in high context cultures. You see what I mean? So privacy is very important in low context cultures, in Western societies. For example, your space, your privacy. You never ask a person what's your religion, what's your address, like even your friend. You don't ask about the salary, you don't ask about religion, you don't ask about their place of residence, basically. You don't call them unless there is a prior permission. You ask, may I call you? So space is important. The neighbors even do not know what's going on, in the nearby. So these are violated in high context cultures. In high context cultures, basically, there might be close relationships which leads to violation of space, privacy, rights, which is taken for granted, basically. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. The next question to you is by Dr. Ramani. How does the notion of intercultural perspective influence the reading process and reading comprehension?
Oh, that's most relevant question. Yeah, I say spot on. You hit the nail on the head. Yes, for reading, there are different ways to skin a cat. So there are different definitions for reading. Some reading there, it depends on your approach to the definition of reading. Do you find it? Do you approach reading in a passive perspective, or you believe in a critical reading perspective, critical and active reading? So nowadays, the postmodern approach to reading is influenced by ideas of Derrida, ideas of critical reading, rereading, reader as a sort of active agent in himself or herself. So when we read, we reconstruct the meaning. When we read, we refabricate and refabricate the message. And what the role is that reading materials which are produced from other cultures. We have now word Englishes and English as a lingua franca. So the materials that are produced by as reading materials in a foreign language are not necessarily familiar to you. So you need some information. You need information about Christianity. You need information about rites and rituals in different religions, in different cultures, in different countries. Their lifestyles, their cuisine, their art, their music, all of these are the necessary information which is acquired through intercultural communication studies, which is conducive to more effective reading comprehension. There is a test in Australia called the STEP test for immigration. This step test, you read the text, and everything is about Australian music, like Cold Chisel, like and about Christianity, all details of Christianity, all details of life in Australia, about Australian music. So you need intercultural study, intercultural awareness to be able to answer the questions and go to Australia and get the immigration. If you have no intercultural information, if you have no intercultural awareness, you simply cannot understand the text. So the awareness, intercultural awareness, intercultural information, in terms of the foreign values, norms, lifestyle, music, time, whatever. All of these are, I think, the prerequisite information you need to foster your reading ability, reading in a foreign language ability.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And the final question, if you wish, we'll have one more question, sir.
You can have 20 more questions.
Okay, so the final question to you is how to improve understanding of culturally different text in a vernacular educational background.
In the vernacular, it's also an interesting question because this is very pragmatics. You know, you need to read pragmatics. I give you the key term. The key term is pragmatics, actually, and you need. There are two fronts or two perspectives on this. One is amenities. You need the facilities. You need the facilities to be able to familiarize the students with these notions. Nowadays, with the advancements of technology, like TED Talks, you have so many talks. YouTube gives you literally, and Dr. Google is so generally providing us with all information. However, I believe the answer to the question is mostly provision, that is, you know, the macro structure of the government and organization to supply the necessary facilities for the students. And curriculum is the curriculum and syllabi are also important. We need to redefine our syllabi. We need to reformulate our syllabi and include cultural studies in and reiterate the significance of culture and cultural studies, intercultural communication, cross-cultural studies. I have written papers on intercultural communication. Please read my paper. The latest one was about, I was a professor at Bangkok University in Thailand, and there's a massive study on the significance of intercultural courses, intercultural communication courses at universities, and how it can affect students' future professional development. So I believe one is inclusion and re-emphasis and rejuvenation of cultural studies inside the curriculum and curricula and syllabi of the university, provision of the necessary facilities for students to be able to have easy access to movies, to seminars, to conferences, to webinars like this. This webinar is in itself is a huge step forward. So webinars which provide the necessary information. Also, pragmatic studies, but most of the time we see that the focus is only on syntax and mostly syntax and semantics to the exclusion of pragmatic studies. So pragmatic failures and flops ensue. Hence, students need to know about interaction. What is pragmatics? What is interlanguage pragmatics? What is interactional pragmatics? What is meta pragmatics? What is all different aspects of pragmatics? I hope I was relevant.
Yes, sir, that was a brilliant response, sir. Thank you, sir.
More questions, please. I'm getting warm now. I'm getting
Yes,
warm. It's warm up.
okay, sir. So before I thank you. First of all, I request you to excuse us for the interventions occurred. Like I was disturbing you regarding.
So was my voice okay? I'm very worried.
No,
Did
your
you
voice
hear
was
me?
clear, sir. Your voice was clear. Even you could find it in the chat box. The participants
I
have.
would look like a clown. I would look like a clown
No,
talking to myself and to the walls here.
not at all, sir. Not at all. Yes, sir. So thank you for sharing a spontaneous academic research presentation.
So please provide my research guide to the audience. I really respect and appreciate their feedback. Please provide supply them with my email address.
Yes,
I
sir.
would like to receive their feedback. I would like to join their project. I would like to collaborate with the audience. They are all respected, distinguished professors.
Yes,
I say this carrying code to Newcastle,
yes,
because
yes,
India educational system in English is fabulous, and I'm really impressed by my students' language proficiency, and their level of education. And I really want to send you a note of thanks for this meeting. But I need contact with them, with the audience. Please,
yes. I have already shared your link in the chat box, sir.
and also my email address.
Yeah. I will share it, sir.
And
We will share.
please ask them to join ResearchGate and follow me. I will follow back, and
Yes,
we can launch projects. Thank you
yes,
so much.
sure. So the key takeaways from the session are the teachers of language in teaching reading should be cultural interactants, and also simultaneously they have to create a professional identity for themselves. Meantime, their roles are multifaceted, such as the roles of pedagogical expert, subject expert, and didactic expert. Thank you for opening up new avenues for the research, sir. Thank you so much,
Thank
sir.
you so much. Nandri,
Thank you.
Nandri,
And Nandri, sir.
Nandri.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
So
much.
can I have access to the video? Is it recorded or no?
Yes, sir, it is recorded. We will share you the YouTube link, sir. Like as soon as.
Nandri,
Yeah,
Nandri.
Nandri, sir.
Namaste, namaste,
Namaskar.
namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Shall I leave? Shall I
Yes,
go?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My duty is done.
Yes, sir. Perfectly done, sir.
But I like to listen to are they following talks?
No, sir. They could only chat. They are posting the message in the chat box. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Have a lovely day and look after yourselves. I again thanks all the audience, all the professors for listening to me. Please provide me with your feedback.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day, sir. Thank you.
Have an excellent day. Bye.
Yes. Bye, sir. Bye.
How can I leave? There is.
I will
No,
eject
you are the boss.
Yeah.
Your wishes are my commands, lady. You are the commander. I'm a regular soldier.
Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dear participants, we will join for the next session at 3 p.m. I request all of you to join 5 minutes earlier to the session. Thank you all. Thank you.